for me right now.
Okay, no worry, ma'am. No worry, ma'am.
Is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, it is.
One sec. Okay. So yeah, as we have communicated earlier through the brochure and the mails, that we are going to talk about something which is going to help us get into the space between the resume and the potential. So any hiring that we do typically begins with having calling out a resume of the candidate, and we nowadays are also able to, most of the organizations now in this group also would be using technology bit, so using a lot of AI chatbots to filter these resume based on the skill set that you are looking for, and then we try and see that whether we have got the right candidate or not. But today we are going to talk about something which takes you beyond resume, and you really wonder that through the screening that we do these using the technology bit, are we able to actually reach to a competent person, and what potential basically is. So talking more about it, I thought this graphic is going to serve right. So as a thumb impression, which is very unique, the anatomy of potential, of true potential, is also very unique to every individual. I'll seek permission from Rashmi. Rashmi is my colleague, and I know her from, I think we met in some 2014 or 16 while I was part of an academic institution. If you look at my own consulting firm right now, the way she helps and supports, it is not something that is hidden in her CV. It is not there. So it is not something that I was looking into the CV, which is enabling Rashmi to do work for me and co-create this space. So what her traits which were visible to me was a very hardcore, dedicated professional, a very committed resource, very honest, very ethical, and along with that, she's very enterprising. So we'll try, experiment, get new things. Now, when you have to start an organization, you need such people who can take ownership. So even if I call it a day at 6 o'clock, she wouldn't. So रात को 9:30 बजे I'll find a message, ma'am, whatever we had decided, I'm done. So where does this potential come from? This potential is not visible in your resume. So that's the joy of understanding the bit of competency, because that will tell you about potential that is hidden in a candidate and which is not apparent in any of his credentials. Yeah. So just a thought to bring a little more of space of reflection, that if we were to think of rejected credentials, right? So we normally reject basis what? The technical eligibilities, the years of experience, the locational hindrance, and so on and so forth. So if we were to look at these locational hindrances or credential hindrances, you would find that probably these two gentlemen would have not come on the surface. So just a hypothetical look at these people. Dhirubhai Ambani, for example, right now, I'm sure Barsha would know Mukesh Ambani very well, right? But when it comes to the entrepreneur who began the legacy of this group, his credentials as such were not very sufficient, which could have been selected. Or if we take up Ritesh Agarwal's example, who founded Oyo Rooms, his credential again were not very suitable to be selected. So the human element between these two cases reflect of something beyond what is being offered in the credential on the CV. So this vision, how can you measure it through a simple resume and interview process? Agility, how can you measure that? Or executional capability without even somebody doing a performance. So normally it happens, candidates enter our organization and probably after 6 months or 1 year, we say in a meeting that, no, it was probably not a fit. It was not probably a good hire. So there is some science which can help us and enable us to avoid this poor hiring. So this is exactly what we wanted to draw attention upon. If we go by the calculation, the scientific calculation about it, so any college degree or any optimized keywords will always fall short in front of the potential, the learning agility, or the grit and execution that candidate has. So the point is that credentials are not entirely irrelevant, right? They are very much required, and at times they are non-negotiable. But yes, competencies or behavioral elements of agility, grit, and executional capability are frequently not found on the resume or the interview bit, and therefore it becomes like a greater loss to the organizations when the focus is not on these elements. Okay. We also want to bring in the AI bit of what is happening right now, where I think there are many people who are very proud of the fact that no, they have replaced a lot of acquisition entry people because technology is taking over. So you would find that talent is not same as a resume for sure, and AI is completely unaware of the fact. So AI is doing his own algorithms of how to find out the minutest aspect of this individual. But on the behavioral elements, AI tools also need to be very advanced. So even if a psychometric tool comes in, there is a own limitation there. Yeah, Ketan sir, please.
Yeah, I just bring an example here. I think some of you might have watched a movie called Captain Sully. Captain Sully actually landed the aircraft on River Hudson in February 2009, and all the passengers survived. Later on, there was a kind of a quasi-court case where the manufacturers of the plane and the other experts, along with the journalist, they used artificial intelligence to kind of recreate the scenario under which the recreated scenario said the plane would have landed safely. Wherein then the captain said to the judges that why don't you bring in the human element into it and then do it again. So they added the human element and they found exactly the machine would have landed the plane the same way Captain Sully landed the moment that human element was brought in. It's an excellent movie, especially the last 30 minutes on this aspect of competence basically.
Great. So I think this is where the question is that what kind of mechanisms, what kind of frameworks do we have which can allow to find out that potential at the entry level or at the hiring level, so that this hypothetical aspect of hiring, wherein we use a gut feel or we use a assumption that because we have screened so many candidates, कई बार I think young students would agree, placement agents placement के लिए जब तैयार किया जाता है तो they are said, please make sure that your 120 seconds are fabulous. The way you present yourself is fabulous. Yeah, that's right. It does make an impression, but it definitely is not a scientific way to uh, categorize a candidate in terms of their own potential. So the AI blind spots, if you see current research mentions, is that algorithms are engineering on the past elements. So they are saying this is what the candidate has done, this is what number of years he or she has spent, or this is the kind of management institution he or she is coming from, and they are based on designing all the machinery is designed based on the past. Past is a predictor of future success, but yes, potential is something which is more present, which is more situational right now. So the AI blind spots are these elements that I'm showing on the outer wheel, and you will find that resilience, what does resilience do to a workplace, is phenomenal as compared to any other credential that he or she has. Humility for a managerial and a leadership positions, although at an entry level, we are generally humble and this trait comes in. But on a managerial, when the teams are being handled, how humble is this person? What kind of humility he carries? So these are some of the blind spots that AI finds it difficult to bring forth on the surface. I think empathy and leadership presence is another level on which all the developmental interventions are happening for leaders today. How to build in empathy. And I think these are the elements which resume or a interview level filtering may find it difficult to handle. So I think while we do not put focus on these parts, and if we do a wrong hiring, you'll find that there is this systemic shockwave that we say, which goes through the entire organization. So आपने एक गलत candidate लिया, and if there are 8 people, 9 people reporting to that, then the loss is even more. So I think more the hierarchy, the more is the loss that comes in for an organization. So wrong hires are at times a reasonable reason for a lot of discontent, disengagement in an organization, and a lot of culture misfits that could happen. So when we take a case and try and see what are the expenses that one has to bear while you do a bad hire. So there are some of the visible costs, like you have spent on a recruitment agency, you have done background verification, you've hired another outsourcing agency. Today, I find there are a lot of HR consulting firms which are doing the entire outsourcing game for the organization. So, ये सारी जो cost है, training है, onboarding है, these are all your visible costs. But the hidden systemic drag is your large elements which are not visible and which cannot be completely quantified on paper. Yeah. So I think the immediate loss is your productivity loss of somebody who has been in the system for 6 to 8 months, and you are then trying to replace him because he's not a fit. And I think there is a very interesting example that comes to my mind here. There was a candidate who was IIM Ahmedabad pass out. So, and as you would know, an IIM candidate immediately gets a very nice package to begin with. So he was made a vice president. And this firm was basically a German organization, MNC, which was providing the municipal equipments to the government of India in the various municipal cities. So for about 6 to 7 months, this candidate pursued the job, and then suddenly one day he resigned. And I incidentally know him. So at that time I was a part of Dr. Rao's consulting firm. So we made a case. We brought him to the organization. We asked him, why, what happened? You were one of the best candidates for this IGP batch. And after about 6-7 months, you have left this job, which was almost 30 lakhs at, I think, 10 years pehle ka, agar main aapko bataun, to this is the kind of package that he was holding. So he shared a very interesting thing. He said, I was under a very deep depression after about 3-4 months. So we thought there is something personal that has come up for this gentleman. So he said, no, there was something which was very ethically biting me every day. And we were like, okay, what? So we inquired further, and we got to know that this person was born to a family which holded ethics as a very supreme value. So he was part of his parenting also was of preserving the human values and ethics. So a very hardcore, honest guy, right? And when he landed onto this job and he became a vice president, daily his work involved, you would all know how the equipments need to be sold to the government machinery. So every day he was struggling with some kind of bribe cases or some kind of manipulations to sell those equipments. So there was a period of time over which he developed a fatigue, and he decided that this is not a part of what I do and what I hold values for, and he resigned. So you'll find an IIM candidate with all the best of the credential and the best of the hiring mechanisms, a very deep down value belief misfit does not allow him. So there was an immense value cost that the company had to bear because of loss of this candidate. But I think these are the examples which tell us that कई बार हम एक infinite loop में होते हैं, there is attrition happening and we are continuously putting in more people. So I think most of my clients at times find attrition as their biggest problem. But then at the same time, I also talk about what is happening on the retention bit. So what is the culture building activity that you are doing to hold these people back? So there are many other dimensions. Let's not digress from the topic, but yeah, a bad cause can have lot of invisible systemic damages which are not visible on the surface. So having said that, Ketan sir, would you like to add on
Yeah,
any
the
perspective here?
previous slide, just an experience.
Yeah.
Of course, I cannot name the candidate. In 2001 to 2004, I was with Idea Cellular, and we had recruited a senior manager. At that time, it meant about 12 to 15 years experience. Perfect CV, perfect background verification, cost was matching. And, down the line, 12 months, we had a case under quash. And then we went into the background verification once again. Generally, we do background verification with previous one company or maybe two companies. Then in this case, we went back to the previous third company and we found the case to be there also.
Yeah.
But then we lost 1 year. It became a quasi-legal case and we had to set up that committee. It went on for 2 years and it took away a lot of productivity. To some extent, as Nidhi was saying, morale of the group in which that candidate was working, and likewise. So one small, not
Yes.
eventually we learned that yes, this should also be done in a softer way, especially if the position is sensitive.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so I think this was the case study that we tried to plot in, and this particular case mentioned that if you have a target salary of about 20 lakhs of hiring that we are doing, and if the competencies are not taken care of, or the scientific tools of understanding the potential of the candidate were not largely taken up, there are great chances that this candidate might not stay. And these are the tentative costs that one has to bear. I think the damage to culture, customer relationships, and overall employees, the image of the organization is something that cannot be tangibly calculated. So this is kind of a rough multiplier about what kind of scenarios can actually harm this kind of hiring. So now what is it that we are talking of leading to for this discussion? Smart HR leaders track more than costs. So the mandate that we are trying to talk about is that the goal is not to hire faster, but the goal is to hire better. And that is what our endeavor is. And how do we do, what is it that we can do about it? Let's move into that zone as well. So I think resume, I was going through a small certification. I may right now not name the organization, to just see after about 10-15 years. Ketan sir, I got very excited to see whether I have become complacent or I have become irrelevant. So I enrolled into a certification course which was on behavioral event interviewing, and you will find that the the uh, the kind of work that is happening, where even the consultant who is going to hire you is sitting with an AI chatbot. So whatever you are saying, he's trying to use all kind of technology to grind the words and tell you what words and sentences this candidate has used. But in terms of competencies, there is not even a smart JD in their hand. And an international NGO that I worked with a couple of years back, I spent about 6 months to create their competency profiles for about 25 key positions. It was an interesting work. We used to do a lot of focus interviews, be one-on-one interviews, and we created these competency maps for them. And then one day while we were talking each other, I just spoke with them that, are you using it for hiring as well? They said, no, we're not using it for hiring. We are using it for succession planning. And so the idea is that a competency map का जो सबसे beautiful aspect is hiring, is to create a framework for your organizational growth and then start using it for the hiring as well. You cannot use it only for L&D. You cannot think that L&D may I need a competency framework or a 9-box matrix, or let me just fix people while I'm promoting on different slots. So at the foundational level, if your key roles have a purpose-driven job description. I think that is one game changer. And then post that, if you can do a little bit of effort on putting competencies for each role and then start your entire HR cycle, there is a very scientific way in which organizations have grown using this kind of algorithm management. So this is what we will talk about a little more. And the iceberg model is very, very common for multiple ways in which we talk in HR. If we talk of behavior, we can talk about iceberg model in an organizational scenario. But in resume, you will find that a resume is actually capturing just the top 10%. It can capture what? It can capture your education, your certification, your previous titles, tenures, technical elements. But the 90% of the hard to see strong predictors are generally hidden deep within. And I think when we speak of the late Ratan Tata and the kind of legacy he got for Tata, today we'll find a lot of succession planning happening, a lot of people who are coming in, but there is a small kind of replication which is yet to happen. So ये इनका जो blueprint होता है of highly competent people, highly competent leaders, if it is not captured and stored and developed in the organizational layers, there will be a point where you have a leadership crisis. So I think to understand about this 90% is a little bit of understanding the science of mapping and using it for your own organizational good. So I think emotional intelligence as well is one element where you cannot predict it on the CV at all. And it is actually impacting a fresher, a mid-level, a senior level, and a top management. Yeah, Ketan sir.
Yeah, in fact, 2 points. So one, this particular slide as well as the entire presentation. I just finished reading the book by Sanjeev Mehta, the ex-chairman of Hindustan Unilever, CEO's Brew. One of the finest book I have ever read, especially after Built to Last by Jim Collins. I think this is a book I would rate it very high in terms of management.
Yeah.
Not only he's basically a sales and marketing guy, of course, he's a chartered accountant. He spent almost most of his career with HUL for that matter. And he's across all the chapters, you will find emphasis indirectly or directly on competencies. Who are the people who helped him, why they helped, why he chose them to be in charge of certain projects, why he chose them to be in charge of certain product categories, why he chose them for certain regions, etc. So that's one book. I would even recommend that all of you to read that book.
Sure.
Second point is in February 2020, Sunil D'Souza, who was the then MD of Whirlpool, was in San Francisco and he received a call from a headhunter that Mr. Chandrasekharan, the chairman of Tata Group, wants to meet you for Tata Consumer Products Limited, the so-called FMCG company. So he said, I don't think, to the headhunter, he's saying, I don't think the company is going anywhere and the company is not doing many things right. The headhunter aptly replied immediately, that's exactly why Chandrasekharan sir wants to meet. So his profile was known to all the headhunters. He was a big man. He turned around Whirlpool. But somewhere Chandrasekharan must have seen more than skills and resume, the profile, that these are consumer products. And he did turn around over a period of 5 years. The TCPL as we know today. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, no, I think quite an apt example again. So I think the people here, we all would have such examples in our own respective workplaces where, and I think if I see young students also there, you will find that even for any kind of credential, if you see, for example, if we take up a teacher job as well, you may have the same credential, but what you would actually do in the classroom to create the change in students' life is something that cannot be captured in a resume. And when I think at this point, the example that was coming to my mind was again where this entire movement of competency conceptually, I would like to just bring in, was started by David McClellan. So he said, just stop using the IQ tests to bring in IS officers in India, if we can take that example. So he was talking in US where he said that all administrative positions you are using IQ tests, but they do not determine the quality of jobs that are coming. And you find the same thing happening here. We have, if we look at the administrative officers of India, not everybody is a great leader. So they might have strong academic background. And in our families, कई बार बोलते हैं ना बच्चे हैं, they are not studied well, quite well, but then they go and become founder CEOs. So the high weightage on having eligibility cannot be the single parameter to have hiring. You have to mix your credential requirements along with digging your roles, extracting competencies, and then starting your hiring element. That is what we were trying to suggest through this slide. And this interesting thing also you will find, I don't know if you would, any one of you would like to share. This is not based on any other research, but yeah, probably what I could do with my elements of the AI tools that I use for what kind of elements come out through AI. So AI said, I cannot find out your motivation and drive or your learning agility beyond a psychometric tool. So you will find that resume typically captures the top three. What is your knowledge, your skill element, your experience? But what about the motivation that the candidate has? What about the cognitive ability of solving new problems, personality traits that he or she has? So these are the critical drivers which are invisible on paper. And yeah, Ketan sir.
Previous slide.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. One from the experience of working in Torrent Group, where senior management position, typically AGM and above, an average time taken was almost 4 to 6 months. At times frustrating also. Eventually, we learned that the managing director was very clear. We are not hiring a candidate. We have to understand the candidate in totality. You may feel frustrated, Ketan, because you are bringing the CV through the agency and agencies are pressurizing you, etc. But unless there are 3-4 rounds of interviews with different functional heads, including the main function head, and in some cases, even the managing director, it is not the 5 round of interviews. It is the understanding of the candidate that we are trying to develop. We have a CV, all of us have the same CV in front of us, but 5 people have 5 different ways of looking at the candidate. And if more or less, if 5 people converge, then he is the right fit for the company. I still distinctly remember the word, used to say this very repetitively, right fit for the company. So that's one part. And secondly, some of the competencies or most of the competencies kind of become visible as the candidate gets to the experience. Typically, after 5 to 7 years of experience, the candidate also starts understanding the word competencies beyond skill for that matter. So as a recruiter, I think we may have to keep this in mind. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thanks, sir. I don't know, I think just slipped out of my mind, but yeah, what Ketan ji was sharing is also something wherein we'll find that there is a limitation of what we are doing while we are hiring in terms, maybe there is probably a limitation, and that is why there is, if there is a lot of attrition happening in an organization, probably there is some missing link. And it definitely has cultural threads attached to it, but at the same time, the way the recruitment is happening, the way the onboarding is happening, the way the inductions are happening. So I think the HR fraternity carries the load, and therefore the lot of expectations come to this particular role to mend it and try and cure it in the right manner. So moving ahead, if we look at success, it's not a single factor, as Ketan also rightly mentioned right now, that it's only about after 6-7 months that the candidate actually starts absorbing the organization and completely flows into the role that he or she is holding. So it takes time, but yes, anytime there is this combination of competence, motivation, opportunity, and environment happening. So you can't over rely on having a nice resume. So I think while I was interviewed for a training role, 3 rounds happened where the principal facilitator was only asking me that why do you want to come into the training function? Do you have the intent to create difference in others' life? And I used to say yes. अगली बार phone आया, अगली बार और energy से yes बोला. And I then repeatedly got irritated. Why is this person only asking about this element? Are you ready to create difference in someone's life through your trainings? So now today, I mean, he's a mentor and a very special colleague, senior colleague for me today also. And we were talking on this, that the competence assessment, apart from your credential fit, is the next element to see whether this person and their purpose of work in life aligns with the role requirement as well. So if that there is a misfit there, there is a gap there, then probably the potential will not be utilized also in the right fashion. So you'll find smart leadership will always spend a lot of focus on understanding what is the role in totality and then understanding the candidate's perspective upon to it. So what we are trying to now get into is that we will try and understand a little bit of the competency bit in detail, in a little more focus. And when we speak of redefining the core mechanics of human potential, it's said that don't be completely a past focused hiring. Don't completely look on the experience part of it. Also do an observable, measurable, like competence ko, agar anyone who wants a little more clarification can raise questions in between. But when, for example, let me share, we did an assessment center for about 800 people for a pharma company. Okay. So they were all area managers. And all 800 area managers had to be assessed on common 6 competencies. So we were 6 assessors, right? And we spent 1 month in the organization, right? Now, agar hum dekhen, तो what were we measuring? We were measuring the observable and measurable pattern of behavior that candidate displays on these 6 competencies. So for example, team management, or for example, his customer care. Okay. Now, if you ask somebody in your hiring on a resume basis कि आपने इतना साल फार्मा में काम किया है as a वो initial position को क्या बोलते हैं केतन सर, I'm forgetting.
Medical representative.
Medical rep. So you have been a medical rep for so many years, and now we want to take you as an area manager. What was your customer experience and how happy your customers were? Everybody will give a very hypothetical answer about it and say, yes, I was a very nice executive and my customers were very happy and my doctors were very happy. But when it comes to ground realities, maybe the story is different. So there is no evidence of it. So therefore, typically in assessment also, what we try is to see is the observable evidence of that competency in that candidate.
Now, can I add, Nidhi, one thing? What
Yeah,
we
Kavita.
do? Yeah.
Yes.
So in our organization, we don't give hypothetical situations to the persons. The
Yeah.
competency-based questions basically is about how you have faced it in the past. Like we do ask, what is the biggest challenge you have faced and how have you overcome that?
Right.
Like we are into a outsourcing company, so we do that. Have you ever faced any customer escalations?
Yes.
How did you resolve those customer escalations?
Yes.
How do you go on client calls? What are the basic things you do when you meet a client? So we ask them what they have done in the past, not what they feel or what they will do.
Yes. Thanks for bringing in. So I think another example where you are using past examples also to find out, extract competencies from that predicted behavior that the candidate has already displayed. I'll also add on then, for example, if we give them a simulated case study to all 800 people, you will find that there is an amazing trend which comes up. And these kind of ways of assessing candidates tell us that you are able to gauge that aspect, which probably a verbal interview or a written interview, any kind of mechanism could have not done. So giving them asking them about past examples of what they have done, also giving them a simulated environment where they can demonstrate potential is a combination of how you do it. Yeah, Ketan.
Yeah, in fact, I had the advantage, I had the opportunity of being a facilitator in Torrent Pharma, a kind of an assessment center for area managers and their bosses, regional managers. And just for clarity of everybody, area manager is typically a 2 to 3 years experience medical representative, and he has been recommended for a promotion by his bosses on based on certain clarity. Now, in pharma industry, area managers are, we call it the gods or the culprits. They are responsible for either attrition and or retention. They are the first scapegoat as far as the HR is concerned, or for the bosses are concerned.
Yes.
So we had that some awakening, and so why not run an assessment center? It was a kind of an experiment. So for about 100 odd people selected based on their past performance, of course, and then we went through the entire exercise, created the basket of case studies based on the pharma industry, some simulated exercises, invited some of the faculty members like Nidhi for that matter at that point of time. And finally, what at the end of the year, at the end of the day, we agreed that this ATR promotable. Then we were clear promotable means what? 1, 2, 3 in terms of competencies, skills, results in the exercises, etc. for that. And eventually, some of the observations were put into the recruitment criteria of area managers, and even to some extent medical representative, which is actually the entry point for a typical BPharma BSc candidate into the pharma industry.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nidhi.
Yeah, my pleasure. So, when we look on evidence-based competency management, we don't talk of intuitions. So there are these structured ways in which the competency assessment becomes easier. So any one of you would like, I'm not getting too much into how competency maps are created at this point. If you can just drop us a message, we can send you a little more material around it. I'll be very happy sharing more work around it. Like typically, if there are students in the group right now and they want to know more, we can tell you. But otherwise, yeah, if you don't use a combination of these 4 elements, probably the hiring might not be a very evidence-based. That's what our experience calls out to be. And even I would like to bring an example here. While I was in a management institution, the placement was happening. I was amazed to see that it is an international MNC which set up 3 rounds of interviews wherein they were trying to see if this candidate has all 14 competencies that we want as core competence of this organization. And out of, I think, 490 candidates, they selected only 3 candidates. And I'm sure the management institution was really very, very annoyed by this because credential wise, people who had A+ grades, CGPA was very high, but they did not select them. So when we went into their science, they were following the 3-layer competency hiring, and they were focusing on all 14 competencies. So for some competencies, they were giving a case study. For some, they were doing group discussion. And for some, they were also giving, also saying to write about family background. So what has been your background? I mean, what kind of stories do they bring in? What kind of pride association they have with their own family background? So a very interesting simulation that they had created. But this is how many organizations are right now creating breakthrough hiring mechanisms. And these are some of the ways in which it can be done. Assessment centers typically now are used for hiring also in a very predominant fashion. And I think I'm also reminded of my Reliance days when we had to hire about 60 candidates and we were given 1 day and there were 240 applications. So I think 2-3 people हम लोग together बैठ के हमने बस एक ही चीज resolve की थी. We will look at the executive presence of the candidate and put a small green tick and send it to you on the second round. So that way we were coding each other. But I think these things have now become, if at an entry level kara jaye to fir bhi theek hai, but otherwise from the middle and the higher level, I think these kind of ways in which we use our gut feels to hire may not be the right way to choose the competency based candidates. Yeah, Ketan ji.
Yeah, a very simple example. I'm sure most of you will be able to relate with it. And it's a small question to all of you. When we hire a driver, what are the things we look into? Let's say he's a driver for the managing director.
Alcoholic habits.
Alcoholic habits, fantastic.
Dressing.
Excellent. uniform, dressing code, etiquettes, clean shaved, कब टाइम पे आना, टाइम पे जाना, accessible, फोन उठा लेता है,
Behavior.
immediately, and he कोई absent है तो वो काम भी कर लेता है, stretch करता है, right? So one of the things which I was taught by my seniors way back in 94 2000, my first assignment is that because that was a gas utility business, Gujarat Gas, British gas distribution. So there were drivers on the emergency vehicles also, for that matter. And MD's driver was also kind of a common pool in case of a requirement. He or she will be called upon, or he will be called upon. So one of the key input he gave me right in the beginning: every driver who works in my company should know how to repair the car in case of a breakdown. All kinds of breakdown. So I don't want just drivers. I want those drivers who know their vehicles better than the manufacturer. That's the way he used to play. So even at that level, competence, you may not understand that driving is a skill. All of us know how to drive. Okay, it becomes a motor skill if you drive for 4 or 5 years. You don't have to look at the gear also. But do we know how to repair a car? We don't. We are not in that sense a competent driver. We are just drivers in that sense when we drive our own vehicles. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I think very interesting. I'm reminded of my child's pediatric doctor, Ketan sir. He's considered one of the very difficult doctors in the city. And one of my colleagues said that you really are talking of Dr. Shivpuri, you go and meet him, take your small child there, वो इतनी बुरी तरह से डांटते हैं पेरेंट्स को. मैंने कहा हाँ मेरे को भी एक डांट पड़ी है because I wanted to give antibiotics to my child. But then I had that reliability and trust in him because he was so passionately aware about what he was doing that he would not allow me to give an antibiotic even if my child is, I am believing my child is right now very serious condition. He would say, नहीं नहीं आप सिर्फ बुखार हो जाए तो आप ये कीजिए वो कीजिए. You'll find that so this gray area which cannot be actually quantified is what enables a superior performance versus an average performer. So he's a brilliant doctor, and this component is what the competency science helps us to reach closer with. So I'll take one more example and then pass the baton to you, Ketan sir. We were doing an assessment center and we had a cement industry we were into. There were 600 candidates. In that assessment center, we had 32 candidates and there was one woman. Okay. So one of the interviewer asked that woman, what is your something about her marriage and where is the husband and some typical questions about her personal life. That lady created a lot of fit around why was I only asked this question. So there were a lot of biases of the interviewer that she brought forth, and then she was fighting her battle with the assessment center team on why was I asked this particular question, that what is my marital status, am I married, single, separated. And we all know that these kind of biases also creep in while we are hiring somebody. And however, we selected that person because of the role that we were assessing for required somebody to have complete executional ability and complete persuasiveness in the role that he or she is having. And she played her part very beautifully in terms of holding her agency and talking to the organizers about why was I singly asked that particular question. So you'll find that at times there are no predicted ways and still you will be able to see competencies visible in that particular person. So once you start getting into this art of what is the role, what are the role requirements, what are the top at least 6 competencies that will be required from this particular individual, you will find that a lot of maturity will come in the kind of candidates that are being hired and some scientific base will emerge to it. I would now invite Ketan Bhai to share his experiences and then we both can again come together. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So I'll use the slides for you, sir.
Yeah. So this is the simplest definition of a competence. I'm sure all of us can read together in our mind. Competency is an observable. You can observe it. You can measure it. Knowledge, skill, and underlying trait or motive for that matter that drives effective or superior or efficient performance in a specific role or a context in a given situation. If there's a project or it's a complex team of scientists or there is a crisis management requirement, that's a context. Or it's by default, some roles, let's say the company is introducing a new category of products or company is opening up a new region. So a person has been made in charge. It's not a crisis management, but the region is kind of so far not company has worked there. So it's a specific role. I'm just trying to give you the example. So unlike talent, competencies can be defined, as Nidhi was saying during her discussion, competency dictionary or competency profiles, assessed and developed with reasonable precision. And as one starts practicing it or the organization starts practicing it over a period of time consistently, those definitions and assessment criteria become final for that matter. So this is the language of Assessment and Development Center regarding competency. You are not asking if this person is talented. You are essentially asking during the interview or the interaction, does this person demonstrate strategic thinking or stakeholder influence or relevant competencies for the specific roles during the interview stage? And resilience under pressure. This is a brief introduction, conceptual introduction to the term competency. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, any questions here? Any sharing in between, or do we move forward? Are we going well, clarifying your expectations? Okay, fine.
So as far as the concept is concerned, we are looking at 3-tier competency architecture. As you can see on the slide, the first one is leadership. Now, leadership here is not by designation. This is as far as the competency is concerned. So any level for that matter, junior management, middle management, senior management, and the top management. Anybody can demonstrate leadership competency. So leadership or the behavioral competencies, which are anchors mapped to specific levels like change leadership, decision making, ability to persuade, ability to negotiate, ability to influence. Then functional, which is specific to the role, technical or educational role specific skills required for day-to-day execution. These are functional competencies. And there are foundational competencies, which are non-negotiable baselines, many a times emanating from the values of the organization, like integrity, collaboration, communication. I would like to spend a little more time on communication. I think one of the most misunderstood term in management and especially in HR is communication. Communication, most of us would understand as what? Can anybody contribute? What is communication, if I may to ask? Is good in communication or she is good in communication? Yes, Barsha.
So the clarity we gave while speaking, the presentation of our thoughts to whom we are talking to, that is communication.
Yeah. So that's one part. Thanks, Barsha, for bringing in that element. So one is the speaking part in whatever form you are saying, direct speaking, indirect speaking, like we are talking to each other right now. Then there is a writing part of it. And then there's a listening part of it. One of the most ignored part of communication is the listening. So these are and there are, in current days, you have multiple channels of communication. So how effectively one is using those channels, especially those in HR and marketing know it better for that matter, as far as the importance of communication is concerned. And this is one of the key competencies, the book I was referring, CEO's Brew. This will also run across all the chapters, communication, especially by HR and marketing. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I think on this particular note, what I would say is that if anyone in the group is trying to create a competency map for their own roles, I think this is the architecture that you need to understand.
True.
That your non-negotiable baselines go into the core or the foundational. So every role is split into 3. And we will see that leadership and behavioral, we are putting like a slash because at any point we will want that candidate to actually move towards the higher ladder. So your core and foundational are your integrity, collaboration, communication, but your functional are your technical. So I think जो CV का या resume का role है, वो largely functional और core foundational पे end हो जाता है. These two still you can reach through a resume screening or an interview process. But if you are not doing a focused assessment for leadership behavioral traits, you'll find that he or she is very good on technical abilities, on integrity, but he's very weak on taking decisions, on influencing others. And then he's handling a team of 20, 30 people. So he's creating more damage than service to the organization. Yeah,
True.
Ketan sir.
Yeah, one example on this slide, and then we can proceed further. Let me ask a simple question. Let's say you're hiring a payroll manager. Let's say he's going to have a team of 3 payroll executives under him, and you're a sizable organization of 2,000 people. Your payroll runs into, let's say, 50 crores a month, or sorry, 100 crores a year. What are the 2, 3 competencies you will look into this person? Payroll manager. He knows SAP. He's well experienced. He's qualified. He's an IT guy who has done masters in HR. Has worked with good companies. So what key competencies you look into this kind of a profile? 5-year-old, 5-year experienced candidate. Top 2 competencies.
Yeah, I think you can send a chat also, chat message also. Just try and do this experiment. Let's try and co-create this.
Yeah, anyone? The payroll manager, 5 years experience, resume perfect, kind of companies work, background verification great. But still, you would like to check 1 or 2 competencies. What are those 1 or 2 would be? Or could be. Yes, Barsha?
Sir, I'm not sure of it, but let me try. He or she should be accountable of what they are doing, and uh, they should more focused about detailing, uh, and uh, there are a lot of audits, so they should be particular about their decision making. That's it.
Great. So you have done my job for that matter. One of the key, or rather top most competency would be accountability, because here is a role which takes care of 100 crores of layout, जो company pay करती है. And second, as she rightly said, there are audits and there are decision making involved in payroll for that matter, where he may or may not require inputs from his seniors. So he's supposed to take those decisions based on the policies of the company. So integrity, indirectly speaking, and accountability, most important part. Thank you, Barsha, for your inputs. Next, ma'am.
Yeah, I think I'll also put up this question. Most of the founders, you would agree, most of the top leaders that you talk of, the common pain area they would have is that my team is not taking ownership. And I'm yet to find a scientific formula which can tell whether this person owns the work that he or she does. The competency bit does, but all of you, I mean, any one of you would like to share, how do you test ownership, which you struggle later so much because that candidate is not taking ownership. So how do you test ownership while you are hiring? Anyone guesses? I mean, can think of or do maybe probably they've done some work around it and tried and make a algorithm of how to test ownership for somebody. Any one of you?
Ma'am, may I?
Yeah, please.
Ma'am, ownership is something you cannot ask for. You need to earn it. So, while I was being interviewed, uh, most of them asked me why why there are so many transitions in your profile. So every time I accepted whatever, like my situational learnings and whatever the situation was, I accepted, and I took that I acknowledge that I did this and did that, and that is how my learning went
Took
through.
place.
And
Yeah.
yes.
Yes. Yeah, brilliant. So I think I'm just putting up these questions right now. We don't have that kind of space where we can talk about this, but yes, now ownership is something which is such a behavioral trait, and we if we have not defined it as a value trait in your organization, you probably would not focus of it when you are working or doing the hiring part of it. So, anyways, moving forward.
Yeah. So, what is the strategic value of competency-enabled predictability? So, first and foremost is, of course, it improves your hiring accuracy. And at times, you will have to balance the time part of it, and in some cases, even the cost part of it, especially if it is middle management and above. But hiring accuracy, as I was saying in my experience with the Torrent Pharma, the right fit for the right profile. And that's where we used to take, that's what in that case, management used to take 3 to 4 months, 3 to 4 rounds of interview for the candidate. So improving hiring accuracy, of course, based on once you get the person with reasonable confidence on his competencies that are required for his job, then the coaching would be on the job training, on the job helping him by his immediate bosses or through HR for that matter becomes measurable and to a certain extent even easy for that matter. Then the third one is in terms of objective succession and just a minute. Objective succession and I'm not able to see the slide.
Mobility.
So once the person is hired well for that matter through the right framework and he continues with the organization, then his succession or for that matter any role succession and becomes easier, and mobility of people across roles for that matter. When I say across roles means cross-functional roles. Most of the companies which have successfully implemented and consistently implemented this framework of competency-based recruitment, promotion, succession uh, uh, have kind of made it ingrained in their HR processes. As far as, and people move across functions. It's not just one functional hierarchy, people move on that. So HR guy moves to, for that, I forgot his name, Nidhi, you would know, the Birla, Santosh Mishra, who was the guy.
Yeah, Sandrup Mishra.
Sandrup Mishra. He is an HR guy who went on to become the managing director of 3 companies in Birla Group for that matter.
Yes.
So cross-functional mobility for that matter. Then it becomes, once the practice becomes ingrained across the HR and for that matter, all those people who are involved in recruitment, it becomes part of an embedded culture and values for that matter. Eventually, it becomes reduced attrition or for the matter, better retention of the talent across the hierarchy in the organization. So this kind of framework gives you the institutional capability, grows faster than the individual tenure. When you start off, if your company is not doing competency-based, using competency-based framework, it might take some time, but it is worth investing your time or organization's resources for bringing in this competency-based framework. Yes, ma'am. So how this?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just add on a little thing. What I was reminded of an example where, like, I would like to first put in forth that whenever we are approaching the competency-based HR systems, laying the foundation, for each role, you need to make a competency map. For each competency map, at each competency, there are behavior identifications that we need to do, and we need to put it on. So, for example, influencing ability. What would it be for this organization vis-a-vis the other organization? So I'll share an example. Some very dear friend of mine right now said that अरे we don't even need to do anything. इतनी मेहनत जो आप पहले करते थे वो करने की जरूरत ही नहीं है. You just go to an AI tool and say कि मुझे आप इसके competency behaviors बना के दे दीजिए, तो it will make you in seconds. Earlier we used to make it. It used to take us months to make it, get it approved by our senior consultants. I'm sure that job has gone down, but I'll share. There is a small risk that we are doing while we are doing AI-enabled behavioral maps is about the context of what this role is going to work into. So,
and what is the stage of the organization?
Yes, I think वो nuance तो बहुत important रहता है that at what stage are we talking of the organizational age, the organizational maturity, and then what is the context in which this candidate is going to come in. So AI tools are very helpful. I personally recommend them, but only after you have done a good dig work on the roles that you have, the critical roles that you have, and you have understood your own assessment has happened on what are the core 6 to 8 competency frameworks for each role, and also having a competency frame for organization. I think I was just trying to put that risk around, because normally क्या होता है कि suddenly we get excited, okay, we want to make competency map, we'll go make it. But contextually, if somebody who is a subject matter expert has not weighed it along with the context of the organization, they might fall like a very beautiful picture in your organization, but it will not be useful. So it could be a very decorative piece that you can buy, and I'm sure these kind of work can have a skyrocketing price when it comes to having a consultant to do this. So you may spend a lot of money and still not gain the value. So therefore, I think myself and Ketan, both come from Dr. Rao's learning. So we believe everything starts from doing it at your own. Organizations have to empower themselves. So understanding this particular science and doing it yourself is far more precious than just getting a copy paste done from somebody else. So
True.
that's just
Very
thought
true.
that comes to my mind. Yeah, continue, sir.
Great. So how does the structure reduce bias for that matter? Structure meaning the hiring process for that matter. So, and the assumption here is that people who are involved in the hiring process, or even for that matter, interview process, even for the promotion candidates, all the interviewers are trained. This is the assumption in this slide, basically. So we will ask same questions regarding same competencies to every candidate. All of us will ask the similar or comparable or the same questions. We'll all use the same rating scale, and we will record we'll ask about the behavioral evidence, and we'll record that into the interview sheet for them. And the multiple assessors means all of us are trained into asking questions and recording answers in a structured way. So that is the whole underlying meaning of structure. So you are following a pattern and not just randomly asking question to every candidate for the same position. Yes, ma'am. So the outcome is great. You have consistency, fairness, and kind of comparison across candidates becomes easier for that matter, and it gives you predictive validity for the interview process itself.
Yes. And I think at this particular point, I'm reminded that there is a huge a kind of an iceberg hidden in the word bias. So you will find that when you sit on this side, मैंने देखा है बहुत young जो students होते हैं management के भी, after 1 or 2 years only they start doing the recruitment interviews, right? Because of the advantage of having the HR specialization in them. So I have many student and young professionals who I keep in touch with. You will find that there is an unconscious bias that creeps in. So if this candidate is from my birth town, my hometown, there is some kind of biases that come in. Gender is a bias. Institutions from where they are coming. Your own dynamics with multiple evidences in that CV. So you'll find that the human mind is trained to pick up on biases. And everybody sitting, me, Ketanji, everybody sitting here will have these biases playing while we are talking to somebody. If I am talking to somebody, I will use my own bias mechanisms to filter the quality and the competence of this candidate. And therefore, assessments are happen. Whenever assessments happen, they are done by people who do not know the candidates to eliminate the biases. And as Ketan Bhai was sharing that same competencies के ऊपर assessment होता है, same questions, same rating scale, same behavioral evidence के methods होते हैं, is because we are trying to make it as scientific and as foolproof as possible. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
Yes.
So the leadership. Okay.
Yeah.
So, leadership competency framework defines the knowledge, skills, attitude, and behaviors expected of leaders at different levels. The word is
बोलते नहीं मैं को एक बार बोल के दिखा दो तुम चुप हो जाएंगे तुम्हें पता है क्यों नहीं बोलता क्योंकि
Yeah,
खाली
hi,
बर्तन
Rhythm.
में बसते नहीं है वो
Rhythm,
पूरा
are you
भरा हुआ
there?
है
Rhythm, please mute yourself.
मैं तुम्हें सोर्सेस दिखा दिए ना तुम्हारी फटके चाल जाएगी
Rhythm, please mute
और
yourself.
इन लोगों ने बताया
Just a minute,
मुझे नहीं
just a
पता
minute.
इन
I'll
लोगों ने
mute.
बताया कि इसके सोर्सेस तगड़े हैं मैं तुम्हें
Ketan bhai, I'll unmute you. Just a minute.
Yes, ma'am. Please continue.
Yes.
unmute
Ketan
kiya
bhai, am
आपने?
I audible?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
So,
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
in the first small paragraph, the important words are behaviors expected of leaders at different levels. So here the word leader does not necessarily mean the hierarchy as we define in top management or senior management. And as Nidhi Madam has spoken about competency profiles, each competency is described across proficiency level. Now, this is for the rating purpose. So, what is the
I request if you could just put your mic on mute. Somebody who's not interested may also leave, but I'm not sure where the voice is coming from. Okay.
yeah?
Yes, ma'am. It's
Yes.
muted. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
So,
Thanks, Rashmi.
yeah.
Yeah.
So each competency is described across proficiency levels, meaning this helps in defining the rating scale with observable behavioral indicators. We'll see an example very soon. So this makes the framework useful for recruitment, performance management, succession
Yes.
planning, even for promotions for that matter, assessment centers, and leadership development for that matter.
Yeah.
So we are essentially talking of, as Nidhi Madam was saying, creating a competency map, and for each competency, the rating scale or the proficiency levels. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So I think we'll bring the example to make things clearer. So I think this is a leadership competency framework. And
So,
yeah, please
go
carry
ahead.
on. Please carry on.
Yeah, so if you can see the leadership in this particular leadership framework being used as an example, if you can see, there are 9 elements into it. One is the strategic thinking. I'm not getting into the definition of each one of them.
Yeah.
Then leading people for that matter. Execution excellence. A driver also is, one can measure on execution excellence, like a CXO for that matter. Communication and influence. Emotional intelligence. Decision making. Innovation and change. Customer orientation, internal customers, external customers or consumers for that matter. If you take a large FMCG company, their distributors, wholesalers will become customers, who in turn sell it to the retailers, who in turn sell it to the consumers for that. So customer retention or orientation or consumer orientation, both words are important here. And integrity and ethics. Most of the companies have this in their value system also, integrity and ethics. So if you are looking at leadership competency framework or leadership even as a competence for that matter, some of the elements which would feature and for which there will be proficiency levels, like, so
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. I think we'll use this slide and then go back for better understanding. So I
Yeah.
think
Yeah,
levels,
go ahead.
as Ketan sir was sharing, let's take a hypothetical example of a leader for a very fresh, very young organization for about like 5 years, right? So for a 5-year-old organization, the leadership requires a lot of innovation and change. So you'll find that proficiency levels uska ek next layer hota hai, which creates that classification of what kind of quotient we require on each competency. So it's like slicing your roles into that kind of classification where it becomes like a crystal clear map of what kind of person are we looking for. So now you will see that अगर हम 25 साल का अनुभव लिखें और experience in retail industry लिखें and good communication skill लिखें, it may not be sufficient. So we have to dissect the role and bring out these competencies which are very critical here. And as Ketan Bhai was sharing initially, competency requirement of a leader in a pharma industry is going to be very, very different than what is required in a startup. And they are going to be very, very different when it comes to a management institution. So you'll find that defining your role and understanding the behavioral elements of that role is very, very important. And I think we have not covered it in this part, but how we create is we actually look at successful role holders in that particular position. I know of a management institution where एक पूरा institute का turnaround आ गया because that leader was very innovative. Now, anyone who steps into his shoes will require that innovation, agility, and decision making at that level. So how do you preserve that particular blueprint is therefore we create a lot of research documents where we are capturing the success stories of who has performed well in that particular organization. And you will be surprised to know that if you are new to this field, that this happens for every role and for every competency. So we first create a competency frame and then we get into proficiency levels. And as I shared that the next slide will clarify a little bit of it. And this slide is talking about strategic thinking. Ketan Bhai, if you could share how strategic thinking in your organization was divided into levels. And I think that will be a great insight.
Yeah, just while I do that, let me add on to what I had shared about my experience of assessment center in Torrent Pharma. When we finalized the competency requirements for a regional manager, of course, there were a cohort available of about 100 candidates, which they were working with the company, successful. And then we also made it sure that at least 10-15 people who have left the company but were successful when they were with the Torrent, we contacted them. And we asked certain questions to them also with their consent, and they gave their inputs as to what made them successful in Torrent at that point of time. So we collated their inputs as well as the inputs from the present day candidates, and that's how the competency kind of directory or competency map was created for the regional managers. So we were referring to the strategic thinking as part of leadership competency framework. One of the elements is strategic thinking. Hypothetically speaking, let's say you can decide, first of all, you want 2 level, 3 level, 4 level, 5 level. That's the company's own choice for that matter. Having decided how many levels you want, you have to create distinct baskets of levels so that level 1 is very different from level 2 or level 3 or level 4. Now, level 1 in this particular case is what are the behavioral indicators for a leader who is emerging. So let me read 1 or 2 lines, for example. He or she understands the objectives of the department. Now, he understands or she understands that has to be ratified by the HOD or for that matter, the HR if there is a team of people working with this candidate for that matter. He or she prioritizes work according to immediate business needs. So there is an element of time sensitivity, resource sensitivity. Prioritization is the result of sensitivity of time and resources for that matter. If you see level 2 will have to be, once level 1 is met, then the level 2 emerges for that having fulfilled the criteria mentioned in level 1, one can go to level 2. Not that few criteria are met and one straight away goes to level 2. That will be slightly dangerous. So level 2, developing leader. So one was an emerging leader. Now that person has been identified as a potential leader. He's in the process of development. So he anticipates short-term business implications for that matter. Let's say person is in HR. What kind of business implication he or she will anticipate? That also needs to be understood. It is not necessary that when say business implications, meaning people who are in the front end, sales, marketing, supply chain. No. People into accounts finance department, people into quality department, people into HR department, they also need to anticipate short-term business implications. Evaluates alternatives before making decisions. Evaluate alternatives, and it also means he generates or she generates alternatives. Before evaluating, one needs to generate alternative. So this is, for example, level 2, which is distinct from level 1. Can we go to level 3 and level 4?
Yeah, sure.
Now, level 3 means person who was developing now is developed, and now he is into new category called advanced leader. So the person fits into this kind of behavioral indicators, he or she will be qualified as an advanced leader. He develops strategic long-term plans or mid-term plans, identifies business opportunities, balances operational priorities with future investments, etc. And advanced leader, once he or she fulfills all these behavioral indicators, if you move, then the level 4 will apply. Shapes the direction of the organization. This will be typically CXOs and above for that matter. Anticipates industry disruptions. Now, industry disruption can come from 2-3 sources. One, the global sources, government, regulatory sources, or the competition for that matter. Creates competitive advantage for the company. So these are the examples of behavioral indicators for one element called strategic thinking under the leadership competency framework. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I think thank you for explaining it so beautifully. And what I would like to ask, what is your experience of while you were doing it on organization, putting them into levels and using these proficiency level? What is the advantage that comes in terms of the cultural bit part of it of hiring these kind of talented people? So could you give your own personal experience of how these proficiency levels benefited? And also, if there is any question from the audience of these 4 levels, any query around it, please feel free to right now share.
One is in terms of the confidence of recruitment or the hiring process. As an HR team, we have hired a right candidate. We have followed the established norms that we follow for our company for that matter. Second, the advantage to the candidate and to the function where he or she is going also is very important, because if he is a leader, he is going to have a team. And the team he is new to the team. So his acceptance as a leader, one, because company has recruited, that is a formal acceptance. And there comes informal acceptance as a leader becomes a little easier when we follow the certain behavioral indicators as far as the recruitment is concerned. Third is in terms of helping that candidate himself or herself for that to kind of understand the business, because of course he has come into the business by understanding the business a little bit, understanding the company a little bit. At the same time, internal context of the company, it becomes easier for HR to help him understand and help him settle down in the role for that. These are some of the advantages once you follow this structure way of hiring and applying this kind of behavioral indicators for leaders.
Yeah.
Ketan sir, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So you are very experienced. So can you please tell me how do you level a transformational leader? Like at what level you would put him?
A transformational leader, I assume you mean somebody who has helped a company turn around, helped a product turn around, helped a team turn around. Am I right or wrong?
Yes, someone who may be manipulative sometime.
Manipulative.
And yes, transformational means what in my understanding, transformational leader means someone you get influenced by uh, so much.
Generally,
So
transformational leader meaning would be somebody who has helped company transformed one
yes,
from one form to another form. That's the basic
yes.
meaning of transformation. Okay.
Trans
Now
is
that
the
could be a
word,
company, there could be a product. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, no, sorry, I'm not obstructing. I'm just adding on कि trans और form दो का जो word का combination है उससे transform बनता है. So trans is like जैसे सर ने कहा, it's changing form from one to the other for the good of the organization.
Let's say company was making losses. Now he
Yeah.
has turned around the company, transformed the company, and company has now become profitable. Or there was a very high attrition in the company. So the HR head has transformed the entire recruitment, hiring, performance management, rewards and recognition, compensation and benefits, everything is. So company has moved from 40% attrition to 20% attrition. That's a kind of a transformation. Or a product was not performing, a marketing leader has a company product was growing at least only 9% per year. Now that product is growing 20% per year. That's a transformation. Of course, it will feature in one of the indicators whether typically the transformational attributes will come in typically last or second last level of the proficiency
level
level.
4. Yeah.
Level 4 or 5, whichever you define for that.
Does
Yeah.
biasness come in that label as well?
Bias meaning,
Like in that leadership style, biasness, like ma'am explained, personal biases are there.
of
So,
course, I think it will be very necessary. I think it will be mandatory to ensure that people in the CXOs and the above positions. See, having bias is nothing wrong. There is something called a negative bias and a positive bias. Also, there's a bias for action. There is something called bias for action, bias for new knowledge, bias for learning. Okay, I am inclined to learn something new every time. So bias has both the dimensions. Negative, as most of us are generally having that. When say bias, the negative implications come into mind. So yes, we must ensure to the best of our capability, based on the resources available, that whoever is finally selected or promoted for that matter, or moved into from one position to another position, is reasonably bias free or bias neutral. Okay, or even if he or she has bias, at times it has happened in my company when 3 companies I work. I know well, when giving promotion letters, we used to communicate very clearly that these are 1 or 2 examples of bias which you demonstrated in the previous assignment. Of course, they were not significant enough to stop a promotion, but be careful about it for that.
Yeah, and maybe most of I'm making a small clarification here for the good of somebody who would have got some confusion here. These levels, Barsha, typically I would like to answer you, because for us, a student sitting here is a privilege and we don't want to miss out on that opportunity. I would say, Barsha, ye jo levels hote hain na beta, these are not something which are categorizing. Like, for example, they are not going to categorize me or Ketan on our levels. Okay, they are levels which are the role requirement. So, for example, Dr. Shweta is your director, right? Right. So, Dr. Shweta में enterprise leadership level 4 पे होनी चाहिए.
okay.
Okay. और emerging leader का जो trait है वो आपके assistant professor level पे हो सकता है.
Okay, got it.
Got it. So
Got it.
somebody who is at assistant manager level, उनकी leadership competency में requirement है या strategic thinking में requirement है कि वो at least departmental objectives को समझे. One behavior I'm talking of. So now you're getting hang of it. So the levels are not categorizing individuals. They are categorizing the role requirements. Competency
Yes, ma'am.
mapping में कई बार ये confusion लोगों को रहता है कि oh, somebody is coming, an external is coming, he is going to do competency mapping. वो हम आपको assessment center में जो करते हैं वो अलग चीज है. जब हम competency map बना रहे हैं तो हम उस role को level में slice कर रहे हैं. So we
Yes,
are
ma'am.
saying कि strategic thinking एक young level पे कितनी चाहिए, middle level पे कितनी चाहिए, senior पे कितनी चाहिए और top level पे कितनी चाहिए, ये उसके levels हैं. So now, for example, we are hiring a middle level person. So we would say कि because ये unit नई है, okay, हमें इसका level of strategic thinking 2 की जगह हमें 3 वाला चाहिए, because ये institute अभी एक नई जगह पे start होगा और यहाँ पे हम afford नहीं कर सकते कि कोई level 2 का बंदा आ जाए. So therefore, you will realize that as an HR person, it is very important that you start observing and understanding behavior in a very, very detailed fashion. So आप जितना behaviors को समझेंगे, उतना आपका हाथ साफ होगा in understanding these kind of sciences behind good hiring, good learning and development support, and all of that. So I thought I'll use your base as a clarification that these levels are then created for each role, not classifying individuals. Okay?
Yes,
Sure.
ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just add on one example here. In fact, companies like Tata has their group training center at Pune, TMTC.
Yeah.
Birla has Gnanodaya. Adani has Adani University. All the leading top 100 companies have their own training centers, training and development center for leaders. And because I was nominated for one of the leadership development program. And when I say leadership development program, means moving from level 1 to level 2 or level 2 to level 3 or level 3 to level 4. and this was not so clear as far as the 7-day or 10-day training was. But one of the underlying criteria for identifying candidates who will qualify for such learning and development inputs was competencies, and that was way back in 2001, 2003 for that matter. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and there are organizations which believe this is non-negotiable कि अगर उनका competency mapping assessment में वो नहीं succeed कर पाते हैं तो वो credentials को उनकी this is a bias for competence that they hold, that they do not allow the candidate to get into the system on a leadership position unless he or she demonstrates enough evidences of behavior on these competencies which are the prerequisite for that particular leadership role. So as you move higher on the ladders, they become even more critical. Yeah. Okay. So we thought of taking this.
Do we have time for that matter?
I don't know.
Or we skip this?
Yeah, and if we would I would just float this exam idea that if anyone wants to make
I think it can be an exercise, voluntary exercise, and one
you
can
can just mail it back to us if you want to make a competency map for team management and put a definition of what team management is and what could be the levels and share it with us. We'll be very happy
with
to
behavioral indicators.
Yes.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of the evidence, as I was already saying, Aditya Birla Group, Unilever as a whole, global company, is, and especially HUL also. ITC, of course, is been in India for more than about 80, 90 years now.
Yeah.
ONGC, a very sparkling example from the public sector companies. As for ONGC, and to my extent, correct me if I'm wrong, ma'am, I think NTPC will also feature here for that matter.
Yes, it
NTPC
is.
has
I just randomly picked different
heavy reliance
sectors,
on competency for that matter. Tata Group, of course. These are the evidences.
Yeah. And I think
and
these are case studies on public also on these different applications that they are doing. So leadership development and ABG. Yes.
And most of them are doing it for more than 2 to 3 decades for that matter.
Yeah.
Larsen and Toubro, I'm sure, is one of the earliest company who started with HRD in 1974-75. We worked significantly on the competency-based framework.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. There are a lot of cases available around the publications of these organizations of how they have used it. So if you have further interest, you can just log on and any one of us will be happy to share more. So I think this one thing we will talk and then we can open it for questions. This is how it moves.
This is a kind of a 7-step system shift, current system to the competency-based management for hiring, for promotion, for role shift, for succession, for learning and development, etc. So one is aligned with the strategy. It is the business goals. Now, it means HR head or the HR team ought to understand what is the business and what is the business plan for the next 2 to 3 years. So aligned with the strategy. So if this is the business plan, what HR must do differently in next 2 to 3 years to match with the functional requirements of other CXOs. So align with the strategy first. What we have, where we want to go. Then build a framework. If that is the strategy, build a framework for how we are going there by establishing the core, functional, and leadership tiers based on the real evidence. This is the 3 tier we spoke about. Am I right, ma'am? 3 tier we spoke about, which is the leadership framework, the functional framework, and the core or the value-based competencies. Having done that, then one can come to decide, finalize the observable behaviors in terms, translate vague labels into specific or easily understandable actions by people at large, especially the people who are involved in interview and or selection process of the company. Then start practicing it, and then as the time passes, it becomes embedded. It becomes an embedded process, and so the framework can be tested through hiring, learning and development, and succession. If the framework works consistently across all 3-4 requirements, it's a fine framework for that matter. Then comes training the assessors. HR alone can't champion alone the competency-based movement. So HR, with the help of leaders, need to identify assessors and train them as to how to use this competency-based framework for that matter. And then, having created a ground, then launch Then launching meaning pilot. You do a testing on a small module or small set of people or certain level of recruitment for that matter. And once it becomes refined and successful, then you scale. Once you scale and roll it out across the organization for almost all the requirements, as I said, hiring, promotion, learning and development, etc., then 3-4 years, it's the time you recalibrate. And at any point of time, most of the companies generally would take inputs from the consultants or the people who are well versed with these ideas, like Professor Nidhi, and then they recalibrate every 3 to 4 years, like a business plan. So you have to recalibrate because the business has changed. The context of the business has changed, meaning the industry environment has changed, regulations have changed. Therefore, the company's business methods also would have changed, business plans would have changed. Therefore, recalibration, whether the old will hold still valid in the new business situation. So that's called recalibration. So this is a suggested 7-step. It can be 6-step or 8-step depending on your company's requirement. So yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I think can we we'll stop here because I think because of the paucity of time and maybe open it for questions. We'll be happy to answer a few of them or any queries. So open to you all. I can see Karthik there. Thanks, Karthik, for joining in. He himself is a champion of institutionalizing his organization with competencies. So good to see you, and let us hear from him about what are his experiences and reflections over this.
Unmute.
Karthik, we can't hear
Sorry,
you.
you have put me on spot.
No, not on spot. Very
So
much.
Ketan sir,
Let's
it's
Spotify.
been pleasure listening to you, and there have been some of the new takeaways that I got through. And we at our organization have been working through on putting across the competencies and integrating in totality with PMS, comp and when hiring, and from the HR business partner point of view. So some of the insights what you have shared has been really useful because we were also, it's a cross validation of what we are doing is really making sense or not. And some of the insights and examples that you have shared has echoed some of the actions we took and reinforced the school of thought processes are really adding value. Thank you so much, Nidhi ma'am. And thank you, sir.
Thanks, Karthik. Yeah, any queries anyone has? We would also like to hear from Barsha about, I think, youngest entrant to this field. I think, what was your experience? Did it make, could you understand the elephant that we were talking about? Could you make sense from it?
Yes, ma'am.
So, अब ये नई नहीं है field आपके लिए. Did you understand a little about it?
Yes, still trying, still learning.
Yeah, we
Uh,
will be happy to. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I always believe that we can offer a certification course, but let us know if there are takers because we need to have at least a 10 to 15 people ka batch where we can run a course on how to do competencies. When you do it, when you learn it the best.
we would love to if you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sure, I'll try and see if we can do that at my level. Okay, any
Yes, ma'am.
questions anyone has? Any sharing about?
Yes, ma'am. Like I have a question on like with this AI integration in competency mapping, like is it easy to like map those competency qualities like curiosity, integrity label, and maybe leadership quality?
See, everything. आपके दो questions are you talking of AI doing it or you're talking of
Like how AI can we can integrate AI with the system progressively, right?
yes.
So is it easy? Like, is it if you are using it or any system using it, is it that easy to map these competencies?
Yeah. I think integrity आपने जो questions पूछे हैं उनमें some of the behaviors are very complex.
Yes.
when typically if I were to talk about integrity only, okay. So normally when it comes to integrity or ethics, आप कोई भी AI tool ले आइए, mostly they will use a psychometric assessment to do it. Now, in that psychometric assessment, they would also use a simulated case study method or an in-basket method to test it. But it is also a very, very contextual and a very
Subjective.
a very subjective kind of a trait. So yes, your answer to your question is yes, they to some extent it can be identified, but apart from that, the kind of environment, conditioning, and culture bit that you are putting that individual into also keeps changing that individual. So therefore, we say that using competency science for one segment of your organization is actually a very deficit way of doing it. So अगर आपने acquisition में उसको use कर लिया और आपने L&D में use नहीं किया या आपने succession में नहीं use किया या आपने PMS में use नहीं किया, so वो integration पूरा नहीं होगा. That's my take on it. I invite Ketanji to add his perspective.
Not directly adding to what she wants to know, but I'm currently undergoing a course on independent director certification. And as part of that course, one of the courses personal branding. And as a part of that, we are being taught on AI. So as far as using AI is to which AI model suits my business requirement. So there are multiple AI models, and every third day there is a new AI model coming up. So ChatGPT, there are versions. Then you have Gemini, you have versions. You have Claude, you have versions. You have Notebook LLM. I think it is being renamed that day for yesterday. So there are multiple. So, and which AI model or which AI engine to use is very important. Secondly, as Professor was saying, prompting is very critical skill for using AI. So AI is what? You give input, it gives output, basically. So putting input is all about context. Where is my company? What do I require from this role? What past roles have delivered? What are the successful candidates' profiles? What are the failure candidates' profile? Inputting is a very critical skill for the use of AI model. That's what I have learned, basically. And I'm still learning in that. Yeah, if you give, and they call it prompt engineering, and there are courses on that also.
Yeah, I think prompt-wise, AI say you can get multiple things done, but yeah, it's all about the context. And there was one bit of organizational stages, which is also very important, which we have not been able to cover because of positive time. Your organization age also plays a very important role in the competency frameworks that you are having. Like sir ne abhi jo example the L&T is a place where Dr. Rao and Parikh set up the competency framework for the very first time in India. But when I met Professor a few years back, he said ONGC keeps coming to them after every 5 years because they want to reform the competency framework based on the context that right now they are operating with. The kind of privatization that is happening, the kind of challenges that have changed. So you'll find that these organizations are continuously revamping their leaders to be relevant to the current organizational stages also. So there are a lot of dynamics there, but yeah, AI does make a lot of tools, a lot of work simpler. In fact, I'll tell you an example where one of the consultant, we were doing an assessment center and he called me as an assessor and aadhe ghante pehle I was like, where are the tools? He said, just give me 10 minutes, ma'am, I'll make the tools through an AI. And I was like, I'm sorry, I cannot be part of this assignment because there is so much of science behind choosing which tool to assess what. And all of that comes with AI, it comes very handy. It will throw you all kind of simulations in 5 minutes. But the only work, so I think the best part of AI is that we are actually now able to focus on something which is very, very precious, of using our human judgment of what role and how do we define it. So the technical part tha, wo वैसे ही eliminate हो गया है. So now at least there is a lot of time and space available for HR fraternity to work on those aspects which are very, very critical for the organizations. So I think that's all from my side. If there are no more questions, I think we've already crossed a lot of time. I'm sorry. On our chat window, Rashmi wants everybody to see that we have created a small community group and on which you can be a part of to get regular updates of the work that we do. So if this is a voluntary thing, and there is this chat link which has been given there. So that's all from my side. Thank you so much for joining in and making our day and giving us the chance to talk about our experiences. Thank you, Ketan sir, for joining this panel. And everybody else, any questions, reflections, you can later share on. We have shared our WhatsApp messages with you. The number is there with you, so you can drop in. That's all from my side.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Nidhi,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Thank you,
Thank
Ketan
you,
sir.
Ketan
Thank you,
sir.
Nidhi.
Thank you,
Major
everyone.
Karthik, all
Thank
the
you.
best.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Nidhi, ma'am. Bye.
Welcome. Bye-bye.